Good evening. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Town of Wendell Board of Commissioners and welcome you all. We're happy to have all of you here with us tonight. We're going to be led tonight in the Pledge of Allegiance by Carver Elementary School student Carter Hyder Vaughn. Come right up here to the podium, Carter. Carter is a 5th grade student at Carver Elementary School. This came to me from his music teacher, who I've had the pleasure of teaching for the past 3 years. Carter makes a difference at school daily in the most important way by showing kindness and respect to all of his teachers and peers. Over the past few years, I've watched him grow into a dedicated musician. Last year, he was chosen to perform a solo during our school performance at Stars in the East. I remember that. He continues to excel in weekly music classes and is currently at as a grade level leader at playing the recorder. He stands out because he doesn't rely on his talent alone, but he also demonstrates a strong work ethic and perseverance in reaching his musical goals. Next year, he will be attending Wendell Magnet Middle School and has decided to continue developing his musical skills by joining the band. I'm excited to hear all of his future achievements. Well, we are so proud of you, Carter, and that's why we wanted to have you here tonight to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Carter. Our invocation tonight, we're going to hear from Bill Alden from the Covenant Presbyterian Church. Good evening.
2 weeks ago at the last council meeting, I introduced myself as an old retired guy and promptly had a senior moment. So I returned to the scene of the faux pas to see if hopefully I can make things right. But first I need to make sure everyone knows that Covenant Presbyterian Church is located on the east side of Selma Road in the South 100 block. And you enter the parking lots from Lakewood, which is the street 1 block east of Selma, north-south parking lots, anyway, 1 block over. Our pastor is Reverend Rick McDuffie, who got a doctorate from Wake Forest Seminary, and he was a Baptist minister for several years, 20 plus, and then had a second calling, and now he's an ordained Presbyterian minister. What you also need to know about him is he's an accomplished musician. So having said all that, I just want to make sure everyone knows they're certainly welcome to join us every Sunday morning at 11 o'clock to worship God and enjoy Rev. Rick's talent. So I'd like to ask you to pray with me now. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, this place, this time, and this group. And we thank you for the bountiful blessings that you have bestowed upon this great nation. We pray for all the broken people of this world who, because of disease, disaster, or man's inhumanity to man, expend all their existence just trying to exist. And some may not believe that you exist. We pray that they will find your presence, providence, and peace. We ask that your Holy Spirit be with all our town commissioners and employees, that they may have the wisdom to know the right thing to do and the courage to do it. We thank, pray, and ask everything in the name of your greatest gift, our greatest reason to give thanks, your Son, our Savior, Jesus the Christ, and all God's people say, Amen.
Thank you so much for being with us. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda tonight? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right. For public comment period, you can participate in public comment in 2 ways. You can sign up at the door the night of the meeting, and you have 3 minutes to speak, or you can submit written statements to the town clerk via email by 5 o'clock on Friday prior to our meeting on Monday. And you have 3 minutes. Those three minutes will be read into the record that you submit. And tonight we have no one again, so we love hearing from y'all. All right, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move into our recognitions, reports, and presentations. Item 4A is the recognition of Carver Elementary School teacher, Miss Emily Boykin. And I received this from her principal, who's here with us tonight. For the past 3 years, Miss Boykin has served as music teacher at Carver Elementary School, and during that time, she has become an invaluable part of our school family. We are honored to recognize her for the joy, creativity, and community connection she brings to Carver through the universal language of music. In her classroom, students are not only learning rhythm, melody, and technique, they are learning to express themselves, to collaborate, and to take pride in their growth. Her exemplary classroom management creates a space where every child feels safe, supported, and inspired to participate, whether they are singing, playing instruments, or moving to the beat. She is intentional in her work with students with special needs, adapting lessons and activities to ensure every child can participate meaningfully and joyfully in the music-making process. What sets Ms. Boykin apart is her commitment to making music accessible and meaningful to all students. Each year, she assures that every grade level has a chance to perform and shine. She works tirelessly behind the scenes to prepare students, plan performances, and give families the opportunity to celebrate with their students and share what they have learned. Her ability to highlight each child's unique strengths helps students feel proud of what they've accomplished. One of the most special traditions she leads is the annual 5th grade performance at the Town of Wendell Christmas tree lighting. This gives our oldest students the chance to share their talents with the broader community, and under her guidance, they rise to the occasion with pride and professionalism. It is a special evening orchestrated by Ms. Boykin that brings together students, families, and community members. Under Ms. Boykin's direction, our students also participate in other community events such as Stars in the East and All County Chorus. This year, a Title I community event will be added to the list. These experiences are memorable for our students and families and a true reflection of the high expectations and creative vision Ms. Boykin brings to her work. Her impact reaches far beyond music class. She teaches students to listen closely, work together, and celebrate each other's successes, skills that will serve them for a lifetime. Ms. Boykin also serves as our cultural arts coordinator for our school. Because of her leadership, our students are able to learn about and experience other cultures found throughout the world. We are incredibly grateful for her passion, her creativity, and her unwavering belief in the power of music to bring people together. We celebrate Ms. Boykin for the light and joy she brings through music, for her unwavering support of all learners, and for the way she connects our school and community through the arts. She makes a difference every single day, and we are proud to recognize her contributions. Well, that's very high praise. So you must be very deserving of it and very special. So thank you for all you do for our kids in Wendell. We wanted to have you here and thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's an honor to teach at Carver, and I also would like to mention that we have some events coming up
Yeah, let's
very
hear about 'em.
soon, and we are in need of some proctors, some EOG proctors in a couple weeks, so if you're interested, please call the school. We also have the 3rd grade plant sale coming up on May 21st, and so if you would like to come and buy some plants and support them, or bring some plants to sell, that would be wonderful. But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 4B is a proclamation recognizing May 4th through 10th, 2025 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week. So I need our clerk to get up here. I told her she had to come to the podium. I'm very excited to be able to recognize Mary Beth tonight for y'all. So this is a proclamation recognizing the annual Clerks Week. Whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, And whereas the Office of the Municipal Clerk provides a professional link between the residents, their local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all while serving as the information center on functions of local government and community. And whereas the municipal clerk continually strives to improve the administration of their office through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state. And whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk. Now, therefore, on behalf of the Wendell Town Board of Commissioners, I, Virginia Gray, Mayor of the Town of Wendell, do hereby proclaim May 4th through 10th, 2025 as Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week in the Town of Wendell, and encourage all residents within the town to recognize and appreciate the valuable role that our town clerk plays in the functioning of our day-to-day operations. Duly proclaimed this the 28th day of April, 2025, and it's signed by me. I don't think any of y'all realize the amount of things that land on her desk and how many things that she helps me with regularly, and I really appreciate that. And I think they'd like a picture. Item 4C is a proclamation recognizing May 11th through 17th, 2025 as National Police Week and May 15th, 2025 as Peace Officers Memorial Day. And I think we have Captain Jeremy Mazingo with us tonight. Whereas there are more than 800,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Wendell Police Department. And whereas since the first recorded death in 1786, there are currently more than 24,000 law enforcement officers in the United States who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. Whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C., and whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers who have fallen in the line of duty will be honored during the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund's 37th Candlelight Vigil on May 13th, 2025, and whereas the Candlelight Vigil is part of National Police Week, which will be observed this year from May 11th to May 17th. And whereas May 15th is designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families with United States flags flown at half-staff. And now, therefore, on behalf of the Wendell Town Board of Commissioners, I, Virginia Gray, Mayor of the Town of Wendell, do hereby proclaim and observe May 11th through 17th, 2025 as National Police Week, and do hereby observe May 15th, 2025 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in the Town of Wendell, and encourage all residents within the town to recognize and appreciate our incredible police force and the work they do every hour of every day to keep our community safe while reflecting on the sacrifices of those who have fallen nationwide. Duly proclaimed this the 28th day of April, 2025, and it's signed by me. We just wanted to recognize all of you for all the things that you do for us in Wendell to keep us safe, and thank you for that.
We
So thank
appreciate
you.
it, Mayor.
And I think they'd like a picture. Right, item 4D is the March 2025 to year-to-date financial report.
Financial report was provided for the board's review in advance of the meeting. Both the finance director and I are here if you have any questions.
All right, any questions from the board? All right. Item 4E is the Launch Wendell Graduate Recognition. I'm going to hear from Assistant Town Manager Stephanie Smith.
Good evening. Launch Wendell supports and develops entrepreneurs and small businesses in under-resourced communities in Wendell and surrounding areas by providing access to business development services, mentoring, and networking opportunities. Tonight, we wanted to recognize the graduates of the 2025 class of Launch Wendell. I'm going to turn it over to Todd Lyden with Wake Tech and Roger Peterson with the Wendell Chamber of Commerce.
We have two.
And Ebony? Marina's not here, right? No, she's not here. Okay. Why don't you, go ahead and stand here so you kind of can see the board and the audience. How's that? Right next to her, just right next to her. That's good. Go ahead, Tom.
I just want to thank the mayor and the commissioners from the town for helping sponsor this, and Roger with the chamber for sponsoring year in and year out. It's crucial for us to have the partnerships at the local level, and so we really do appreciate you all being involved in getting a great class. It's not a sign of the rigor of the class, it's a sign of the fact that most of the folks got very busy, especially when we had a snow day for once in 10 weeks, so it happens.
All right. Thanks. Well, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, and it's great to have both of you here, and I know Marimi wanted to be here but couldn't tonight. As Todd said, it's kind of demanding because it's a 10-week program. If you miss 2 weeks, you don't graduate. So that's part of it, and obviously you learned a lot. I wanted to make you aware that tonight both the town of Wendell as well as the board of directors of the Wendell Chamber of Commerce, several of whom are over here, including our, past president-elect, who are also all business owners or run businesses like yourselves, either are or will be soon. But they have combined to offer you a complimentary membership in the Wendell Chamber of Commerce for a year. And hopefully through that, you'll have the opportunity to do some more networking, expand your business, meet other peers, and learn more about and become a bigger part of Wendell's business community. So congratulations. So we will do, we're going to take some pictures because, that's what's happening tonight.
Thank you.
I think the town manager's jealous he didn't get a picture after his financial report.
We can make
You
him
want
do
to present
that.
those? That's up to you, ma'am.
He's excited.
Let's see, we got those.
Okay, you want to take a picture?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
if
you want to
don't
come
mind.
up here and do it in front of the flag,
Yep,
maybe?
Yep.
All right, we're very proud of y'all. We expect big things. No pressure. All right, item 4A is a presentation by Davenport and Company on fiscal year 2026 debt issuance. Mr. Collins.
Thank you, and we're going to switch out real quick on the PowerPoint slides, and I will reintroduce our financial advisor.
Take a moment.
Davenport.
Slide
Yep,
right.
and I'm going to hand something out while that slide is.
Okay.
All right, good evening. There's a hard copy of this coming around, which will be identical to what's on the screen. And alluded to a little bit of this at the retreat, or excuse me, at the work session. This presentation is specific to a GEO bond that the town has been planning for some time. It was approved by the voters, and this would be the first issuance of the GEO bonds that the voters approved. And as I go through this, please stop me if you have questions. There are page numbers in the bottom right corner. If you go to the second page, a little bit of an overview and a refresher on a couple of points. The town does not currently have a bond rating. You've never needed to establish one, or if you had one years ago, it's expired. And as a result of that, the local government commission, who oversees all the debt issuance, is able to allow you to go and do a bank financing for GEO bonds that doesn't require a bond rating, or they'll allow you to go to what we call the public bond market, where you need a bond rating, right? They're just two different ways to sell bonds. Bank, you're selling the bond to a single lender or investor, and there's no rating required. You go to the bond market, you're going to be selling those bonds through an underwriter, and several investors could end up holding those bonds, and there is a bond rating required. And both of those options are used all the time. It just depends on the project, the issuer, the market. There's any number of reasons a city or a town, in this case, might borrow from a bank versus the bond market. And because these are GEO bonds and because you don't have a rating, you have the option at this point. If you had a rating in place today already, we'd have to go to that public bond market because you're rated, and the local government commission would say, you have a rating, therefore you need to go in that route. We don't have a rating, so we have this option. So what we've done in coordination with staff is we put a request for proposal together and sent it out to a number of banks. We keep a pretty extensive list of banks that we send these to issue these GEO bonds. We followed up with them, answered questions. What we're looking for, and this is consistent with the planning, is a 20-year term, a 20-year payback, and we would be looking to close, if we go this route, in mid-July. We received proposals from 5 banks. They're listed alphabetically, and that's pretty normal response, right? And to this, and we're asking upwards of $20 million. So there are certain banks that, just aren't able to lend money in that amount of money to any one borrower. And
If you don't mind just.
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. There's the 5 banks that we're talking about. Not all of them are necessarily household names, but we do know all of them. They bid on local government debt pretty regularly, and we've closed loans with all of these. And again, this is going to be an alternative to go into that bond market that I spoke about earlier through an underwriting process. So you go to page 3. These are the banks that submitted, and we've got the name of the bank listed on the left. What we're calling a rate lock discussion, right? Are the rates they gave us an indicative rate? Is it an actual rate? Is it locked? How do we lock it if it's not? So, for example, Truist, right? Interest rates are locked through July 17th closing if the proposal is accepted by May 13th, which you would be able to do. Huntington, the rate would be locked through the end of July, but you'd have to enter into what's called a rate lock agreement with the lender. And essentially, the long and short of that is if you enter into that rate lock agreement and then you can't close for some reason, it wasn't approved or something else happened, you would owe the bank a breakage fee. And that breakage fee in red there's about $115,000. So there would be some risk associated with that. And then Webster, the rate would be locked through July 17th if it's accepted by May 13th. I'm going to stop there because those are the three banks we're really looking at here when we're talking about this funding option. Call provisions, that basically means what is our ability of a town to pay off this loan early? So Truist gave you three options, and the one in red is option one. That corresponds to their lowest rate that they offered you, of $4.49. And the importance of that is it's subject to what they call a make whole. And what that means is you are free to pay this loan off at any time, but the bank is going to be made whole on the interest they would have collected from you if the loan had gone all the way out to its final payment. And it's a calculation that they will do at the time of that prepayment. And generally speaking, if rates are lower, your make whole payment to them is greater because they're going to get this money back, and now they're in a lower interest rate environment and they've got to lend it out. They want to be made whole on the interest, so there's a payment due. If rates are higher, your make whole payment should be less. The important thing, however, is with that language, you cannot refund this loan for savings, because any savings you might get from an early prepayment is going to be captured in that make whole payment. So going forward with a make whole call, you would really want to be comfortable that that rate is a low rate where you're being compensated for that lack of future flexibility. And as a rule, particularly for long-term debt, remember we're talking about 20 years, we would advise that, unless you're really seeing a significant improvement on that rate, it's unlikely that that will be in your long-term best interest. Option two, you have the ability to prepay within 7 years without a penalty, right? That's a par call. Par call means you don't have to pay a penalty to pay it off. And that's a 474. If you're willing to wait 10 years to pay it off, you get a little better rate of a 466. So they gave some options. Huntington said you can prepay it in whole with a 2% penalty through 2035 and no penalty thereafter. Webster Bank, prepayable in whole or in part on any date after 2030 with a 2% penalty, after 2032 with a 1% penalty, no penalty after 34 at a 453. We're gonna get to a point where we're going to recommend, if you go with a bank funding, we recommend you consider Webster Bank. They don't have a rate lock agreement. You would lock the rate in good faith, understanding that additional approvals are needed, and if for some reason you weren't able to close, there's no penalty due. Everybody is moving forward in good faith. You have the ability to prepay as early as 2030 and after 2034 without penalty. You have a rate that's fixed for the entire term of the loan of a 453, 4.535, which is only a few basis points higher than even the lowest rate from Truist, which really comes with some little bit of baggage with that make whole call provision. It is very rare that a 20-year loan would ever go through its full payment, final payment, without being refunded, right? Because 10 years from now, it's a 10-year loan, and even if rates are up a little bit, you should be able to have an opportunity to refinance it for savings like you might a mortgage. So in our opinion, having that ability to pay down early or refinance in the future makes a lot of sense for a 20-year loan, and why we would recommend you not consider that make whole call. So we're going to show you some additional comparisons, and we're going to focus on this Webster Bank as, in our opinion, the most favorable bank proposal. Any questions on that before I go to the next slide? Okay. And just as an aside, if you were to close that loan, it's a loan between Webster Bank and the town, you close the loan, you get all the money at closing, you put that money in an account like the Capital Management Trust or some other place where you hold your funds, and you earn interest on that money while you're spending that money on projects. And you're making payments to Webster Bank every 6 months, just like you would to any other bank lender that you already have a loan with. It's a very straightforward process. Okay, now this is going to complicate things a little bit, but it's important. Page 4, under column B is Webster Bank. That is the bank proposal we would recommend. So as you go down there, you'll see the rate of a 453. When you include issuance costs, that rate goes to a 460. That's called an all-in rate. The 453 is a real rate. That's the rate from the bank. But when you calculate the issuance costs, the rate goes up a little bit at a 460. Just two ways to measure the rate. The par amount on line 7, that is the amount of the loan, would be $22.4 million. And what that would yield you at closing on a line 11 is $22.2 million. We're accounting for some cost of issuance, about $215,000 conservatively. That may be able to come down a little bit, but it should not go any higher than that. And that's going to cover your issuance costs, inclusive of ourselves as the advisor, your bond attorneys, the local government commission, and the bank would charge for their attorney as well. So if you were to go forward with Webster and town staff knowing that on line 11, after we close, we need $22.2 million for our projects that are part of this borrowing. And you remember from the prior presentation, there's going to be 3 other borrowings in the future. This is the first. And you would have those payments. They would start in fiscal 27. They're not a fiscal 26 payment, it's fiscal 27. 2.1 million goes all the way down. It starts high and it goes lower. That's called level principal, and that's what the local government commission would expect to see. That essentially is fixed at this point. All that's remaining to do with that Webster is for you all to accept it and for the documents to be drafted. And by the way, on the far right is what's in our planning model that we presented earlier. We were using a 5% interest rate. And so to give you the same $22.2 million, you can see the total payment, the annual payments and the total payments. So even with the Webster, we're coming in a bit below the planning model, which is good, right? We purposely built some conservatism in that planning model. The real decision, though, is column C, which is, should we forego the bank option and go with the public issuance? And remember, that is the scenario where you're selling bonds through an underwriter to a broad group of investors. You lock your interest rate on a single day, and at this point, the local government commission has assigned you, we requested it, and they gave us a sale date in July 22nd. That's the sale date for you all, for your GO bonds, if you were to go forward with the public sale. And that's out in July because there's a number of things we need to do to get there, right? We need to get the ratings established. There's more documentation involved in this transaction, and that's why there's some additional issuance costs. There's almost $411,000, $415,000 worth of issuance costs in that public sale option. More people involved and an underwriting that would also be part of the compensation. With that approach, the interest rate couldn't be locked in until July 22nd. So we're floating with the market until July 22nd, because that's the day the bonds are sold, and not until the day the bonds are sold does that rate get locked. So we would be floating with the market as we're trying to pull everything together for that transaction. Now, one of the more complicated things about the public markets is if you issued up on line 7 under column C, $22.2 million, you're actually going to receive in today's market a premium on those bids. And that is not a function of Wendell, it's a function of selling bonds into the bond market where you have, let's say, a bond with a coupon of 5%, but the yield to the investor is 4%. You're selling somebody a 5% coupon and their yield is 4%. And how's that work? Well, they're paying you more than 100 cents on the dollar for that bond. That creates a bond premium. And that is not, again, not unique to you all. That's how the bond market works. So as you go down the line and you look at that public sale, you're going to see that we would have a payment in '26, about $500,000. And then the payments are starting at about $2.19 million, and they start to step down. And there's a crossover point, right, where the public sale and the bank sale kind of match. And the total difference in payments, right, is the public sale is more expensive by about $730,000. Now, it's a lower rate. It's only a 4.18 rate. That's our estimate. And it's a very good estimate. It's pretty accurate. I should have mentioned that up on line 2. The rate in the public market for a AA rated GO is a 4.18. But remember, you can't lock that till the middle of July. So it's an estimate. But you'll notice what the payments are. And in total, at the very bottom of column C, the public sale estimate versus the Webster Bank actual would be about $730,000 more, but you got an extra $1.1 million of money to spend on your projects through that premium. So it's actually, when you net that out, it's about $400,000 less expensive for all of that funding. And here's really, I think, one of the key parts to the decision, right? And remember, the decision is go with a bank now where the rate is known, it's locked in, we just need to document it, versus move forward and get ourselves positioned for the public sale where we can lock the rate in July. And the public markets right now are a lower rate. But if you wait till July, there's a break-even calculation in interest rates. If interest rates go higher by 27 basis points, 0.27%, the public sale and the bank would be equal to one another, right? So we're trying to measure how much rate movement can we withstand between now and July 22nd before the bank deal, which is currently a lower rate, matches the the public deal, which is a lower rate, matches the bank deal. It's about 27 basis points, or 0.27%. And I'm about to show you, well, could that happen? And the answer is yes. We could see movement of that magnitude between now and July 22nd. We could see rates go higher by that amount. We could see rates go lower by that amount. The reality is, on July 22nd, would know what's the best option, right? Hindsight's 20/20, right? Take a bird in the hand now with the bank, or wait until July 22nd to do the public sale. You'll know then, right, which way would have been the most opportune. Either way, right now, we have lower annual payments than what we're showing in the model. Okay, so we can achieve what the model demonstrates with some additional cushion. Related to rate movement, this is a 20-year municipal interest rate, and we're tracking this from a couple of days just before the tariff announcements on 4/2, April 2nd. And this 20-year rate, which is correlated to your 20-year borrowing rate when you go to the public markets, started before the tariffs. We were around, looks like we were around about a 4.15, right, give or take. After the tariff announcements on 4/1 or 4/2, rates dropped down to 4.4, and then rates moved significantly higher over the course of the next few trading days, and they got up to around a 4.65. Market was starting to interpret, announcements, news clips, whatever was out there that the market could hang their hat on, trying to get its footing and figure out where's this all going to go? What is it going to mean for the economy? Rates dropped again, rates popped up, and we, came out late last week where that rate was about a 4.38. So this is not totally unprecedented, but it's pretty significant volatility for our market. It's not uncommon to see rates go up 3-4 basis points here or there, just nice and sort of steady, a little bit of fluctuation. This is very significant movement, but it also demonstrates that break-even rate analysis I showed you on the prior page, we've seen those sorts of movements and then some in the last 2 or 3 weeks. It's not unreasonable to think that we might see that kind of volatility going forward, depending on how various things play out. So we're in a pretty volatile market. There's not a lot of clarity on economic forecasts, and as a result, our markets tend to trade off of whatever info is available on any given day, and that tends to move things a little bit more, with a little more volatility than you might normally see. And so the point of this was trying to give you a little perspective on that break-even rate. The public sale does look better today, but it doesn't take a whole lot of rate movement upwards before the public sale meets the bank rate. And remember, we gotta float with the market till the middle of July. Let me stop there because I know that's just a lot of information. It's kind of technical in some ways, but I think you can sort of think of it as, hey, we got something we know today. It's maybe not the lowest rate, but we're in a market that's moving, and we've got an opportunity to lock in, or we've got an opportunity to just play this out and see what happens in July. Again, come the end of July, you can look backwards and you'll know, what would have been the best option. It is highly unlikely that this loan will go to the final maturity 20 years from now and not be refunded. I can't tell you when and what kind of benefit you'll get from it, but it would be very rare for a 20-year GO bond not to get refunded for savings at some point. So I do think you'll be in a position down the road to refund it for savings. And both of these options, the bank and the public sale, give you that option. Public sale standard is you can't touch it for the first 10 years. After 10 years, you can refund it without penalty. Very similar to Webster.
Ted, for the board's, just kind of underlying a couple points that I heard from them from their policy feedback and decision standpoint. This borrowing, they have a policy decision of whether or not they want to take existing cost and reduce risk, or potentially save or add, but have more volatility towards a riskier, what's the public going to be? Because they can do a bank borrowing this time. The next borrowing in the forward borrowing schedule, there's not a choice. They have to go to the public bond market for the issuance there, because because we've already done one borrowing underneath.
I think as long as you don't have a rating, you could do it again.
Okay.
So if you did a bank financing now, which means you wouldn't establish the rating because there's no reason to get one, next year you still wouldn't have a rating. You could consider these options again. But if you went the public route this go round, we need to establish the rating. Again, we do it all the time, it's no problem. But at that point, you can't do the bank GOs any longer. Doesn't apply to the installments. Don't think about the installment debt, just the GOs.
So once they go on the public bond issuance, for these general obligation bonds under the referendum, they would have to continue doing that.
Correct.
Any non-referendum borrowing, they could still do an installment.
Always do a bank. It's a unique rule for the local government commission just on GO bonds.
I think we have a question.
And I think it's sort of related to that and just sort of mostly connected to my ignorance of this whole process. What's the difference between the installment finance and things that we've talked about earlier throughout the afternoon, in our capital plan, separate from all this, and a direct bank loan evidenced by a general obligation bond?
Sure. So the general obligation doesn't have physical collateral, doesn't have a building mortgage. It's just backed by your full faith and credit as a town with the ability and requirement to raise taxes if you can't make the payment. If you don't have the money to make the payment, you have to raise taxes to generate the money. There is no decision. It's legally binding. And with an installment, you're not approved by the voters, right? You didn't go to a referendum. You have a public hearing. You all approve it. But the annual payment on that is subject to appropriation by you all. It has a mortgage on a facility, and if you don't make the payment, you don't have to raise taxes, but you put at risk the facility that's the mortgage. So it's not quite as strong a credit as the GO. GO is the best that you can offer because you're compelled legally to raise taxes to raise revenue.
And so, just to sort of drill down one more step on that, the question that you're talking us through and we're thinking about it and discussing at this point is not whether to realize that we would have been better off to just borrow this money and never gone through the referendum process and we get a bank loan and it would be cheaper and faster and whatever else. It's general obligation in both senses, all facilitated by the referendum that happened a couple years ago. It's just two different ways to utilize the authority that was granted through that referendum.
100%. Two different ways to offer GO bonds out to the market. And Webster, all these banks are giving you a better interest rate for a GO bond than you would have gotten on an installment. So there's a benefit to you all there. You're getting lower rates because lenders and investors say, hey, that's the best that any local government can give is the GO. This is simply, do you sell it through a bank financing or through the bond market? But it's the exact same obligation either way.
Question. How often do you see like a 90 basis point move in the same month, historically speaking?
It happened around COVID,
Okay.
right? Whatever that was, March of whatever year, I can't remember.
Yeah.
It happened around then. I remember, and this will be arcane to some of you all, but it happened around Brexit, where the UK was removing itself from the European Union. Markets got unwound by that.
My follow-up question, that's a fairly rare event normally.
Yes.
But I guess in today's times where certainty is not quite so clear, is your recommendation the Webster Bank route? I mean, I'm trying to read between the lines here. That's sort of what you're leaning on as a professional? That's what your recommendation would be?
I think the short answer would be yes, but I do want you all to get there, and this is how I formulate my yes is the Webster Bank is outperforming the planning rate, right? So it fits within our model. We are in a time with a lot of rate volatility, and these tariffs were put off for 90 days. You think about 90 days forward, we're getting towards July, and that creates concern for me. And I guess when I think about local government finance, it's more about minimizing the risk than maximizing the lower interest rate generally. I mean, I'm not saying you borrow money at whatever rate, don't worry about it, but they're pretty close. And I think there's some benefit to getting the money locked in now. Maybe you leave a little bit of interest rate on the table, time will tell, but you have capped the risk.
What is the benefit, Mark, you touched on this, what is the benefit of staying out of the public or the bond?
If you don't go to the public market for bond sale, when the next time we come up to borrow again in the cycle, you have this same, you've reserved the ability to either take a more riskier stance on what the market's doing. Maybe the market's less volatile a year or two from now when you go back out. And it's not a big a concern. You'd rather take that risk then for the lower rate there versus right now with the volatility and uncertainties, there's a higher risk. Do you go ahead and take a little bit of basis point hit now to reduce that risk so that you have money in hand to do the capital projects next fiscal year without that uncertainty? If you get to July and it's the wrong side of your margin, are you gonna go borrow at that higher rate and have to solve that in future year?
So possible hit.
Yeah, for me, it's cash in hand at a rate within your model. You know you have the funding to do the capital projects that are in the budget and in your plan. You can deliver on the referendum obligations that you talk to your constituents for the first borrowing. You have the ability to look at risk next time. The other is we know that we have large capital items outside of our 5-year plan that we need to borrow for. There's the potential for a new police department just outside of our borrowing. So there's other borrowings where we're going to need to go out onto the market and maybe general obligation, maybe that's installment and different, but there's different things that we may look at. To Ted's point earlier, of if the markets drop down to more historical lows in 5-6 years, having a bank borrowing that gives us flexibility to do that at a lower cost basis becomes more valuable than a lower interest rate now that you have to buy that out. So I know one of the conversations that Garrett and I had with Davenport and their staff was cost of that buyout in 10, 12 years, and what that board may need to do to refinance debt at that time for savings of taxpayers then, and not being penalized in the fee to buy that out. So taking away risk now with the fluctuation in rate, but having flexibility in the borrowing method for that future year, being able to refinance. Is that?
And we don't, there's no real need for us to establish a rating based on what we talked about
A rating?
earlier.
Is that?
Yeah.
No, the only reason you would need to establish the rating would be to enter that public market.
Dean's captured that real well in his question. I thought it was a spot-on question about the benefit is from the general obligation nature of the borrowing, not necessarily whether it's the bank or the group of bond buyers.
Got a couple additional questions real quick. Help me understand the premium point on the public sale option a little bit better. I think I understood you to say that we end up getting more money than we've borrowed because of the premium. And so I guess my question is, why would we not sort of do the math backwards and borrow a smaller amount that allows us
That
to
would be
then
an
have
option.
the amount of,
That would absolutely be an option. So when you're looking at this slide under the public sale, you could say, well, all right, well, I don't really need the 23,352,000. I want to get just the 22,215. And all you would do on that day of sale is you would build in the flexibility, and people do this all the time, to reduce the amount of debt to land on the 22,2. And that's what we've tried to account for as you go all the way down to the bottom, and the real difference in the total debt service, excluding the premium, as if you did reduce it and the break even. But there are local governments that say, hey, if I can get an extra $1 million, now's the time to get it, and I got more money to spend on my project. And it's with a bank, there is no premium. It's not a concept that applies to bank financing. It only applies to that public sale.
It's one of the conversation points we had with Davenport on that is if y'all did go on the public sale and we achieved that premium, that can be parked in the capital fund or debt service fund to make a future payment, so that if if you have a better rate in this borrowing than the future one, then you've basically borrowed, or you don't have to borrow that million and something in that future borrowing at the higher rate. So it can work either way.
Last question is kind of more of a policy question that's just floating in my mind and curious about it. Saw the 5 banks that responded don't have a good window into the pool that the RFP is shared to beyond those. Sort of what's the universe generally of who received the RFP, and always like the, localistic guy, like what are the other North Carolina banks besides Truist that are on that list? Can you
What
talk-
are the
that-
other
that
ones?
policy part of just, who's sold the
Yeah.
RFP?
Oh, gosh. Other banks that you would know, Wells Fargo, PNC,
North Carolina banks specifically, or what
B
I'm
of A, First Bank, Southern Bank. It's a very long list of banks, and we add to it all the time.
So there's no, and my point, the policy point here is there's no, y'all are great, but you've got your, sort of your list of banks that y'all
Oh, no,
have
no,
the
no, no,
relationship with.
no.
The nets cast wide, we got the 5 responses we got, you gave us the analysis. There's no, we don't get a phone call from Southern Bank next week, and I'd hate to pick a specific example, but some North
Yep.
Carolina bank next week that says, well, man, y'all are getting into this
No,
thing,
no,
and
we
riding
put
the
it out
risk."
there and we shared the list of banks, and I think if there were any local, we would have included them.
Okay.
So, yeah, there should not have been anybody excluded, certainly not on purpose. I mean, it's somebody somewhere maybe, but it's a very long list, and we're happy to send it to you so you can see just if you were to go that route. So just while you're thinking a little bit on some of that, the schedule there, the recommendation would be, we said, look, you've got two good options between the bank loan and the public sale approach. I think I was hopefully relatively clear on where I think we might actually land if you said, I really want your opinion with us at the direct bank loan. And it would, if you decide direct bank loan, of all the bank option, Webster Bank, I think, gives you the best combination of rate and flexibility. I do think we'd like some direction tonight, but I think technically we would have until the May 12th meeting to make a decision on that definitively, and that would be where the first resolution is adopted. And that's a findings resolution which is being considered by you all regardless of which bank or public, right? I mean, that is required irrespective of the method of sale. And I guess technically that's where we would need to know who we're moving forward with if you're going to go the bank route. And I just want to double check something with Webster. Yeah, May 13th is their deadline to accept. So May 12th does work for a decision that evening. Certainly happy to take direction. I don't know if you've got anything else you want to add as it relates to a decision this evening, Mark.
I think that would just be up to the board's discussion and comfort level at this
Yeah.
point.
If we decided to go the public route, we would be working on the ratings in May. LGC application would go in the first week of June. Late June, you would be considering your final approving resolution, regardless of which way we go, bank or public. You got 2 resolutions to approve. LGC would take this up on July 1, either way, whether we're going bank or public. They've got to approve. Well, they've got to approve it if you're going the bank route. LGC staff works with us if you're going the public route. And then we would potentially close on as early as July 17th on a bank loan, and if we're going the public route, July 22nd is the sale date that the LGC has given us. That's the date where the bonds are sold, the rates are locked in, and then you close and get the funding a couple weeks later. But your rate and your payment schedule would be locked in on July 22nd for the public sale route.
just have a question. Going back to your very first discussion with us earlier on the AAA and AA kind of standards, if we're, how much of where we would find ourselves in the category would affect the rates that you're showing us today?
When we've run this comparison, we made the assumption that you all land at the lower end of the AA.
Okay.
That was when we put the interest rate scale together for the public sale, those interest rates are, as of late last week, as a low AA rating, which I think is the lowest we would consider. Maybe there's a little bit of improvement if you come in with a slightly higher rating, maybe 5 basis points better. It's not perfect. It's not terribly transparent. Like, what's the borrowing rate for a AA2 versus a AA3? I think 5 basis points is about right. So it's not a big movement.
There was a question on action versus direction. Be helpful for staff so we don't have to prepare all the options for the next meeting. If y'all's discussion does lead to a direction of the bank borrowing versus the public, if y'all get to that point tonight, if you're not comfortable, obviously, it's a little bit of time. But if you can get there tonight, that definitely helps staff and our financial advisor prepare the appropriate documents for action at the next meeting rather than preparing all the documents.
Mr. Town Manager, I would certainly want the board to get wherever they want to get to in their own personal levels of comfort. But for me, I'll start it and say that I feel comfortable with the rate, the flexibility, the certainty. I think the direct bank loan, and specifically Webster, would be the one I would pick. So for what it's worth, that would be my thoughts. Thank you.
A couple things for me. Commissioner Lutz's point, you don't know where you stand rating-wise until you enter that process, though, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then in mortgage world, they're used to being banks, lenders are used to being shopped, pitted against each other, competitive, et cetera. So in this particular circumstance, not knowing how the process works, if you throw it out to 30 banks, is it normal to say, okay, we're going to go the bank route? Who's now interested in offering a comparable or better based on our presentation tonight? Is that a normal thing?
We put a request for proposal together specific for the banks, sent it out, and requested proposals back at 11 o'clock a.m. on a certain date, right? So it was not calling a few banks here or there and getting some rates. So it was a very transparent, competitive process. These bank rates are what resulted. Now, if you said, I'd like you to go back to all of those banks and see if they can sharpen their pencil, that's the direction we'd take and we'd do it. I wouldn't call it normal, but I can't tell you that I've never done it either. It's, and by the way, if you go the public route, on July 22nd, you're going to receive bids at 11 o'clock a.m. and there's no negotiating. It's low bid wins, whatever that bid is. So it's very similar to that process. But with the banks, you do have the ability to give us that direction, certainly.
And not only is it normal for you, but is it normal for Truist and Huntington and Webster and for us to say, okay, we're going the bank route. We've got a little bit of time. Give us your best swing. So, and I'm not trying to muddy it up and not trying to.
Yeah. I think, I'm sure they're asked to do that from time to time. Our process, we try to set it up where it's very clean. Now, you got to remember, right, they're also holding a rate through July, right? They're holding a rate through a pretty volatile period, so, or what could be a volatile period. So there's,
they're all kind of holding it in similar fashion.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I guess on sort of the similar point, and not to, just sort of thinking through the public procurement process, I think is really where my mind is, similar to Joe's question, but the RFP process, I'm sort of in the weeds about how that worked, but like, was it a public posting or just a selected group of, like a pool of?
I don't remember whether you all put this out on your website or anything, but we sent it out to a list of banks that we maintain and shared that list. So that for the local government commission who is involved in this process, that they're very comfortable with that. We've done that a number of times.
On page 2, it does say like the 50-plus banks, and
Y'all are comfortable from sort of our existing procurement processes, that this is not
the list-
exceptional in a way that should bother me?
no.
Okay, that's really what I'm getting at.
Yeah, the list they provided was very extensive, national, state, and kind of regional banks. It was everything from smaller lending houses to some of the larger ones. Most comfortable.
I think I'm comfortable with the bank borrowing.
Yeah, and I'm okay with the bank, the stability piece. And again, it's a lot of money, so I just have to ask because in my day-to-day, I would also ask for my clients. So.
What would the impact have been? April 4th had it been 2 days before whatever July. I mean, was it?
The impact on the bank rates?
Not on the. I was making a bit of a tariff joke there, and what like we could. This thing could go either way.
Oh, absolutely. You're talking about the rates between now and July?
I was trying to do the math in my head, but you said 90 days, and trying to figure out when that lands. But I certainly like the bank rate takes us out of. As I sat here and thought about how long we've been thinking about some of these projects, I thought like just Jason Joyner's luck that we get to the time period where we're going to be going to the market, and we'd get this like weird. I graduated college in 2008. I've been involved in all the weird dips. I'm certainly, I think we're gonna be doing both of these things at some point in the future. I'm certainly comfortable with the bank rate and moving forward in that way. Sounds like that's a general consensus, certainly still, and I appreciate that it. I asked, where do all these things fit, and I appreciate that all of them fit into the model, and I appreciate that you've carried that thread through the process. It's helpful to be able to see that kind of move into all these other things. Tonight.
Yeah, it's being stewards of the citizens in the town they live in. I think the bank makes the most sense. That's where I would.
Same. So I think you've got it across the board.
Okay.
Bank.
All right.
Let me say one more thing on what Commissioner Deloach, and I think what Commissioner Eatman may be going down that road too. I will say this, and I like that point. I don't know if it's usable in this world, but if you go to Webster, and we like Webster, do you go the second, third choice and say, hey, you do have an opportunity to sharpen your pencils? Is that done or not done, or is that considered unacceptable?
I'm sure it's done, and we've done it a few times when a client has asked us to do it. We wouldn't typically on our own. It's a bid, day and time submitted, everybody puts their best bid in, and you move on, but we certainly could ask that question if you'd like us to.
So on one side of the equation, we have risk on what the interest rate will do, and whatever small, there's a chance to price yourself out of the model and have to solve that. The putting in any kind of risk in process is also raises flags in your manager's mind.
I'm going to defer to the town manager's experience on this.
Yeah, and if we're within the model and it's a reasonable rate and we're reducing risk and we understand that that might be a few basis points off than what we could end up have gotten on the other, it's the tax, to Lutz's point, it's the taxpayer's dollar. Not taking risk in process or rate is of value, is what I heard.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for spending so
Appreciate
much
it.
time with us today.
Thank you very much.
Very
Thank
dense
you.
material. You made it very clear. Thank you. All right. Let's see, we have no public hearings tonight. We'll move into our administrative items. Item 6A is the fiscal year 2025 budget ordinance amendment number 4. Hear from our finance director.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Board of Commissioners. So we're presenting our fourth budget amendment for the fiscal year 2025 budget ordinance. We last requested an amendment from you guys back in February. We just try to stay on top of the any changes that might need to be recognized by you. That could be recognizing new revenues or something that requires having to transfer dollars between budgets. Just as a reminder, part of your budget ordinance adopted back in July authorized the manager to transfer dollars within the same department. So in those cases, we would do he could do that, and then we'd come to you as a formal kind of ratification. The budget does have to remain balanced through these amendments. We look at it, any adjustments we may need to at a line item level, but ultimately your budget is adopted at the department level. Just to hit on a few of the larger changes in the amendment that was in your packet, we are requesting to increase the legal fees in the administration department. When we put a budget together, we can use annual trends, but you just never know what kind of fees you may be getting into. So we're just trying to project those out through the end of the year. A large increase of for the PEG channel expenses. This year it increased from 2 channels to 3 channels. So there's an increased cost with that, but that is ultimately offset with receiving equal dollars in the utility franchise revenue quarterly distributions, which was also captured in this amendment. We're transferring some funds from the planning department to the IT department for it's just where the more appropriate place for the accounting of some software fees for I believe it was GeoCivics software. We ran into a need to have to replant the plantings in the stormwater feature here at Town Hall, so that was some unexpected cost. And then there's some increase in the vehicle maintenance expenses, particularly in the police department. These are primarily offset by insurance proceeds from our property liability insurance through the League of Municipalities. Let's see a little bit more. Public Works requested to reallocate some of their funds to put an employee through CDL training. There was some significant repairs that needed to be made to a front end loader to keep that functioning so that we can maintain operations. A larger one was we originally had a purchase order in to purchase a new dump truck. Supply chain significantly delayed that. And we also had a need where the sidewalk project of the LAP projects had a little bit of cost increase, so we used that as an opportunity to make that transfer. And then a couple last ones, just a large increase in umpire and officials costs. We have more programming, but it's also fewer people to do it, so it's just costing a little bit more. And you'll see a large decrease in a particular revenue, and then corresponding to the Parks and Rec capital line. The Carver Community Center at Pleasant Grove project, a lot of those expenses and any dedicated revenues are going to be transferred, but reappropriated in your presented fiscal year 2026 budget. So kind of just truing up that particular project. Got a summary there of the changes at a categorical level. In total, 830,000-ish expenses are being reduced. Of that, reducing 732,000 in revenues, which is appropriation for Wake County for the Pleasant Grove project. And in turn, we're also currently reducing our expected fund balance appropriations by about 100,000.
To be clear, since we have some Pleasant Grove residents in the audience, the money's not going away, it's just being reallocated in next fiscal year when the work is gonna be done. We're still getting the grant, the revenues will just be recognized after July.
Correct, thank you. And then just the net changes at the department level. So happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, requesting a motion to approve the ordinance amendment.
Any questions from the board?
Madam Mayor, move we adopt ordinance 07-2025, amending the fiscal year 2025 budget ordinance.
We have a motion to adopt the ordinance 07-2025 amendment number 4. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank y'all. Item 6B is a request to temporarily close a portion of North Main Street for the upcoming Pro-Town BMX event.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and
Bless.
Commissioners. I'm here requesting a temporary street closure for a portion of North Main Street for the upcoming Pro-Town BMX event. Pro-Town BMX is a stunt team that we've had in Wendell, probably 8 or 9 years now. They perform all over the world. A lot of these guys are famous. You'll see them on ESPN and on the Do Tour. They enjoy coming to Wendell every year and look forward to it. So they'll be performing 2 shows on Saturday, May the 31st. That is a show change date. They could not get enough riders for the original date that we were looking at, so we did change it to May 31st. Those shows being at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Following each show, they have an autograph session, and then they also offer free riding clinics to all the children that want to stay and participate. And for those that don't have bikes or helmets, they do have some on site that they allow them to use. The rain date is set for the very next day, which is on a Sunday with the same times. The section that we're asking to be closed would be North Main Street, closed off from 3rd Street to the railroad tracks up on the other side there before Depot, from 9:30 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. This would allow us enough time to set up and stage the event, and then enough time to break the event down to get the streets back open. Public Works will provide the street barricades and cones for the event. They will be delivering those the Friday before the activity, and the myself, I will be there that event manning that day. Parks and Rec Department, also attached in your packet there, submitted the sound device permit and street closure application. All Main Street vendors would be notified about that street closure so they could accommodate other parking for the day.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Pulaski?
Jeff, have you had feedback from downtown businesses about this event?
Everyone likes them except for one.
Is there any changes to the event we need to make outside of that?
There's not much we can do due to the nature of, especially where we have to close the road, but we are only closing Main Street.
You mentioned where the stunt team is from?
They're from Greenville, North Carolina.
Is the location of where the road is closed due to the angle and slope of the
Yeah,
road?
we used to do it up top, like in front of Petey's and 41 North. The first year was okay. The riders don't like the space. It's not big enough for them. They prefer the downside. The first year they did the ramp up by the railroad tracks, but the bike riders were having a hard time pedaling uphill, getting enough speed. So then we did flip it and move it back down to the other side. And eventually I foresee it as we move forward with, hopefully in the future, a bike skate park. Would be moving that event into Wendell Park, so it wouldn't affect anyone downtown.
Well, I'll let let the other commissioners explain what 2030 capital financing looks like to bike and skate enthusiasts. But until then, we can do this one. I'd request that we temporarily close the portion of North Main Street for the upcoming Pro Town BMX event.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the temporary closing of North Main for the Pro Town BMX event. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? No.
Thank you.
Right. Item 6C is the Brownfield Task Orders 17 and 18. Mr. Coates.
Yep, good evening, Mayor and board members. The items, this is Brownfield Program Task Orders 17 and 18. They are the newest task orders under our Wendell Brownfield Program funded by the EPA Environmental Assessment Grant. Scope of the work, Task Order 17 is related to the intersection of Eagle Rock and Wendell Falls Parkway. Most recently, one of the corners there was up for redevelopment for a grocery-anchored retail center. This project also helps fund some needed environmental information for the town's road improvement project as well. It includes the house on the southeast corner that's still existing as well. Task order is for roughly $8,300. Task Order 18 includes preparing an asbestos and lead abatement plan for the Pleasant Grove Community Center project located at 948 Morphus Bridge Road. This task order for 18 is roughly 4603. And both items are within the program guidelines, and we've been working with our consultant, GeoSyntech. I can field any questions that you have at this time.
All right, any questions?
Really quick one, and this may be for Mark, but I appreciate knowing what's going on with this. Are we slowing down any of this by needing to approve so many of these? Is there a reason that we have to approve every one of these task orders? Would it help to do something other than this level of granular detail?
I wish for efficiency's sake we could, but the federal process with this grant requires us to go through a step and then get approval and then go through a step.
Yeah, we have for the next meeting, task orders 19 and 20 will be coming to you as well, so.
Thank y'all for being on top of it, so we
You're
slow
welcome.
you down as little as we can.
Anything else from the board?
Madam Mayor, I move we approve task orders 17 and 18 of a town service agreement with GeoSyntech.
All right, we have a motion to approve task orders 17 and 18 of the town service agreement with GeoSyntech. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, item 6D is the agreement for upgraded street light services between the town of Wendell and Fairway Crossing Homeowners Association Incorporated.
Yep, good evening, Mayor and board members. This is, the action is to authorize the town manager to sign the streetlight reimbursement agreement with Fairway Crossing Homeowners Association. Fairway Crossing is located near the intersection of Jake May and Wendell Falls Parkway. It is on the golf course side of the intersection, and the site work is under construction. They have not installed any homes at this time, nor have they installed any streetlights, but their plans do show the decorative streetlights in the neighborhood, and as part of this process, we like to get these agreements done before construction is started. The HOA is established, home construction will begin shortly. The development has 19 decorative streetlights. They would be eligible for reimbursement based on our 13 standard streetlights, so roughly about $2,100 a year. The proposed planning budget for fiscal year 26 does include this streetlight reimbursement funds for Fairway Crossing, as well as other neighborhoods that have similar agreements. We have the similar agreements with Wendell Falls, 1320 Wendell Falls, and Glennon Meadows off Hollybrook. So we have quite a few of these agreements now in place.
Anything from the board?
Madam Mayor, I move we authorize the town manager to sign the streetlight reimbursement agreement with Fairway Crossing Homeowners Association Incorporated.
All right, we have a motion to authorize the town manager to sign streetlight reimbursement agreement with Fairway Crossing Homeowners Association. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, let's move into our other business update on board committees by town board members. The first is Campo, Commissioner Eatman.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a Campo board meeting a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of items that I sort of report out regularly, but this week I want to highlight a specific one. Some big conversation, I think, happened regionally right now that we all have a say in about the future of US 1 from Raleigh to Wake Forest, or really to the Franklin County line, a little north of Wake Forest. Basically, the question that's being asked and sort of talked through right now at a public engagement level is whether or not tolling the road to expedite the project is a good, is something that we want to do as a region. So that's a question that Campo has a role to play in. I, on y'all's behalf, have a vote there. I don't, need to do that on my own. So I think there's lots of public engagement opportunities, lots of materials online. Mostly, I'm just asking all of y'all up here, if you have thoughts or feedback, certainly members of the public as well, about that question, it would be probably helpful to gather it. Brian and Mark and our rest of our staff probably could talk about this in way more detail and eloquence than I can, and certainly not a direct impact on Wendell, but I think many of us visit that part of the county on a regular basis, and sort of, there's always the secondary impacts of continuing to have the expansion of the turnpike network in the county. We have it. Seems to be successful, at least at getting roads built. The policy question is sort of a separate one. So anyway, I think potential tolling to US 1 is a big question that the larger capital area needs to answer, and Wendell is part of that. So appreciate y'all's feedback before the next one of those meetings. That's all.
All right, Central Pines Regional Council, Commissioner Deloach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Central Pines, there were a handful of information items presented to the council. 2029, the World University Games will be coming to our region. If you didn't know, I did not know this, but second largest global multi-sport event behind the Summer Olympics. Again, it'll be in our region. We have 19 colleges and universities here, so natural host. But again, 2029. Taylortown, which is in Moore County, membership request for them. So I think we're one town shy, maybe one. Anyway, we're almost there, full capacity. Governor Stein's office had staff members there to make introductions, and then there was the public hearing held for the proposed budget. So report back next time on that.
All right, thank you. We'll move into our commissioners' reports. Start with Commissioner Joyner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Wanted to, a couple of fun events recently at Wendell Elementary School as a part of my daughter going to school there, but have shown me the real impact of parents and people being involved in processes. But parents specifically at Wendell Elementary have shown up recently for a big night out they call the Wild Wild West dance, but seeing parents show up also dressed up in character for the event, and seeing we're going to have a couple of these moments with opening new parks and new courts and new facilities, memories that kids never forget. So I also got to go to field day where the highlight of the day is the kids getting sprayed with a fire hose from the fire department, spraying water into the air and everyone getting wet. And if you'd have told me that parents and teachers and everyone would agree that this was a wonderful thing, in this day and age, it's not a thing that I would have thought. So cool to see kids have memories right in the middle of downtown Wendell that will stick with them for the rest of their lives. When I looked at the complexity of what I thought was the only budget book, but ended up being one of 3 books that I saw tonight, looking at those projects, it's the stuff that's coming out of the ground, and it's seeing the kids' faces and the world that they're going to get to grow up in because of the planning and the work that our staff does every day. And so I appreciate staff and all the hard work that's gone into getting us to this point in the budget process, but also staff's commitment every day to operating effectively and working with the public in a meaningful way. I'm certainly happy to be a part of the town of Wendell and happy to be here and happy to be served by the wonderful folks we have in our town staff. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Commissioner Lutz,
No comments for tonight.
Commissioner Eatman,
Nothing else from me.
Commissioner Honeycutt, Commissioner Deloach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mentioned this to a couple commissioners earlier, but I was on vacation last week and had an opportunity to do something that
probably not many folks up here would do. I attended another town's town board meeting while on vacation. So I was in Carteret County, and where I was, they were discussing their assessed value had gone up. They were discussing their budget, taxes, et cetera, et cetera. So it was interesting to see that a community that essentially has doubled their tax base with their reassessment this time, having just gone through that in Wake County, it was really interesting to see the dynamic there, their planning session that they had. But it was funny because we appreciate people coming and showing up, and every once in a while we see somebody that we don't recognize, and I happened to be that guy that night. So there were two people that showed up. They were discussing essentially a $2 billion tax base, and two people showed up. So what we do is important, and we try to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And I can tell you, just in the hour and a half that I was there, we are very spoiled here. We have first-class people, first-class staff, and I can say with certainty that we're in a good spot and we're in a good place. So thank you for that, and don't give me a hard time that I went to a town board meeting while on vacation. So enjoyed it. That would be something our town manager would do probably. Thank you.
Thank you. Quick reminder, this Thursday is the Wendell Market downtown in Wendell on Campen. Food trucks, vendors, all kinds of fun things. All the businesses are open, so I urge you to, it's from 6 to 9. Please stop by, have fun. And also this Saturday is Public Safety Day. And we just had recognize our police officers tonight, and that's from 10 to 2 in the large parking lot downtown. And there will be representatives from a lot of public safety agencies there. Fun things for the kids to do, and free hot dogs as always. So stop by and enjoy those things that we have going on in Wendell this weekend, in the next few days rather. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, we're adjourned.